Hello! Right, so we're going to be trying something different for this vid. As y'all may or may not have known, I had to go on hiatus for a few months because of my new job, and during that time I had a lot of time to think about how I wanted to do these process vids for Gemwatch. And honestly, I'd been thinking about doing this for a long time beforehand, but this gave me enough time to think about how exactly I wanted to do this being talking about the ideas slash lore behind Gemwatch. So I'm going to give it a shot, starting with Hanzo, and y'all can let me know what you think about it, or even send me questions about other things going on in the Gemwatch AU, or about how I do stuff in general, or anything you can think of, really. Right, so let's get on with it. So what I usually do when I'm designing a hero for Gemwatch is I start with either what gem I want them to have, super obvious I know, or what weapon or color theme I want them to have. Like with Hanzo, I first started looking at gems based on color and ended up looking into Sodalite because its colors match a lot of his base palette, the blues and golds. I also thought that the blue being crackled with white and looking like lightning was also appropriate, given him and Genji's association with storms and dragons, like how when he uses his ult in the dragon's sword and lightning crackles around him in his arm, and his bow literally being called the storm bow. I think I also considered Tanzanite for him, but eventually decided to give that to someone else once I looked at Sodalite's meaning. It's already on the caption for the actual art post, but it goes something like, Sodalite will harmonize the inner being or the conscious and subconscious mind, and that it promotes peace and harmony, which is obviously pretty appropriate for Hanzo, whose story revolves around redeeming himself and coming to terms with what he did to his brother and his family, and obviously attempting to find some kind of inner peace on account of those things. Usually, the next thing I'll consider when designing someone for Gemwatch is the weapon that they summon, but luckily for me, Overwatch is pretty easy in that respect and already has weapons picked out for all their heroes, so really the only thing I have to worry about is actually drawing them and how to combine them with other people's weapons for fusions. But because this is a Gem AU, I also have to consider whether or not they would have any latent elemental abilities. Like for Hanzo, I imagined him to have storm-like abilities. Like, he can't breathe lightning like McCree can with smoke and fire, but his arrows turn into thunderbolts upon firing them, and his scatter arrows burst into smaller bolts of lightning instead of its usual thing, and I don't know, maybe he has a thing where if he's feeling particularly prickly, he passively gives off static discharge and shocks anybody that gets a little too close. So usually, the last thing I do when designing a hero for Gemwatch is figure out their gem placement and shape, because it's easily one of the most important aspects of the design, if not the most important, because I have to take into consideration not just where the person in question's gem is, but also where the gems of everyone they will be interacting with are. Because you have to think about, where is this going to go in a fusion, how is this going to interact with the designs of the other characters, like that sort of thing. So for Hanzo, I ended up deciding to put it at the base of his sternum, because, well, it's a spot where I could put it without interfering with his original design too much. And I didn't want to put it anywhere where it would mess with his tattoo, because that's the most recognizable part of his character, and gonna be honest, I thought about putting it on his exposed titty because it'd be funny as hell, but again, that runs into the problem I was just explaining, where it interferes with a crucial part of his design, and also, no matter where it gets put on the titty, it's just gonna be an awkward spot. Because if you put it where his nip should be, great, now he just has a shiny gemstone nip, and if you don't, it just looks like he has two nips on the same titty. But honestly, the deciding factor for putting his gem on his sternum was ultimately the fact that I could give Genji the same placement without interfering too much with his design either. And there's two reasons for that. Then the first is, more than any other character, Genji is the most important relationship Hanzo has, both as a person and in his story. And the second is, I had worked out this idea with my friend Mac, who is the person I do most of my developing Gemayu with, that the Shimadas had spent most of their early life together in a fusion, because Hanzo by himself at the time was too unstable and Genji by himself was too weak, but together they're perfectly balanced. So the clan elders as a whole thought it was a good idea to keep them fused so that together they rule more effectively. So I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way in case I wasn't perfectly clear, but this isn't a fucking incest thing, because fusion isn't inherently romantic or sexual, one, and two, I don't know how many of you know this, but Hanzo and Genji's characters, when they were first developed by Blizz, were actually one person, so I thought it would be neat to incorporate that into their story in Gemwatch. So both of their gems are on their sternum, and are in the teardrop yin-yang shape, with Hanzo being yang and Genji being yin, like the matching sprays they have in-game. So while they're fused, their gems fit pretty snugly without getting in the way of each other, which goes back into their themes of trying to find inner peace and harmony within themselves and feeling displaced and incomplete without their family, which is also a huge theme in Overwatch as a whole. So before I continue on with any more individual stories, I'm going to go ahead and lay out the groundwork for this AU, because things will probably make a lot more sense after the basic rules are established. So, first of all, no one in this universe is a true gem like how you would think about the main gem characters in Steven Universe. Instead, everyone is a gem hybrid like how you would think of Steven himself. So, no one is immortal, and everyone has parents. That isn't to say that true gems aren't even a concept in this universe, because they are, but they're concepts in the same way perfection is a concept, in that it's more or less unobtainable. However, this is where omnics come in. In this universe, omnics still started out as a means to have mechanical workers or caretakers in undesirable jobs, but it also turned into something of a science experiment to see if true gems could be artificially created, and as I'm sure you can imagine, everything went to shit pretty quickly. But more on them later. Right now, we're going to focus a little more on how gems work, and to clarify, from now on when I say gems, I mean the characters in question that are more like gem hybrids and not true gems, which obviously I'll specify as true gems. Right, so every human being has a gem. They've always had them, they've evolved to have them, and no other animal does, which is how Winston comes in later, but again, more on that later. But yeah, everyone has them, they're not a big deal, powers are not a big deal, society has evolved to accommodate them. You have it from the time you're born, and it grows and develops with you as you grow and develop. Like how most passed down traits work, typically you will have the same gem as one of your parents, or the gem of whatever their fusion is, though that's a bit more uncommon. Occasionally it will mutate into something completely different, but that's about as likely as actual real-world mutation, and happens about as often, like two brown-eyed parents somehow having a kid with blue eyes. Technically, everyone has powers, but it's a matter of working on them yourself in order to actually use them, because in this, it's basically an extension of your body, and using them is like using any other part of your body, in that in order for it to get stronger or better, you have to practice or exercise. So yes, technically everyone has powers, but for the most part, people don't use them too extensively other than for what day-to-day life calls for, because like in any universe, practice and exercise are a lot of fucking effort, and a lot of people don't really want to put forth that effort because it sucks dick. So I'm running a little short on time, so I'm going to bring things to a stop for right now. Let me know what you think, like, comment, subscribe, all that good garbage. I'm also going to leave information where you can contact me in the video description, so you can send me gem requests or questions to my Tumblr or Twitter. I want to start doing these videos more often, and now that work has settled down a bit, I should be able to. My ultimate goal is to have a video up either once a week or once every 2 weeks, but it's going to be something I work up to because I still got a bit on my plate right now. Next up is Genji. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the Shimadas themselves and their story, and maybe start dipping a little bit more of the Gemwatch universe as a whole. Maybe I'll even be answering questions you guys have sent in to me. So, thanks again for watching me draw and listening to me ramble. Also, I'm sorry about the mic quality, but this is the best I could do on short notice, and I'm still working out the kinks. But yeah, thanks for watching.